I'm going to do something that I have never done before. I am going to hand stitch for 100 days straight. There's many reasons why I actually want to do this challenge, and one of them is that recently, since my mental health has been improving so much, I've managed for the first time in my entire life probably to regularly keep up certain commitments and also routines for myself that I know that I really love and that really make me feel good and thrive in life. With hand stitching, obviously I make all my clothes like that, and that's my preferred method of sewing. So I thought, what would happen if I committed to 100 days of hand sewing? And some days perhaps I'll only be able to take a few stitches, and other days maybe it'll just be 10 minutes, and maybe some other days it'll be an entire 10-hour binge of sewing, who knows. But just that practice of keeping up with it and committing to hand stitching every single day, even if it's just a little bit. Yes, I am curious about how many garments I'm going to be able to complete, and also if my skills are going to improve at all. But really, I'm more interested in the deeper aspects of how it transforms my own relationship with myself. How does it transform my relationships to commitment and to setting certain habits? And even what are some of the deeper things that are going on for me day to day? But more than anything, this just feels like another aspect of my journey towards wellness and towards my own healing. And my medium for that right now just happens to be hand stitching. I also chose months where there's a lot usually going on with other commitments, like the holidays are coming up. But one of the things I've realized with healing my mental health is that all of the small commitments and all of the small efforts, they add up to something massive. So let's see what happens. The experiment officially began, and I went into it with a lot of hope and motivation, starting off by working on a second pair of Volga Tatar shtan, which are the undergarments of my indigenous ancestors. After just 4 days, hand sewing every day definitely had not become a habit, but I had a feeling that it eventually would. So you know that period before bed where you're sort of just lounging around in bed to try and find the strength to actually get out of bed and get ready for bed? That's where I'm at the moment. And then it dawned on me that I haven't sewn today. Well, obviously this is 100 days of commitment, so I'm going to honor that commitment and I'm going to sew. At least for 10 minutes. And to be honest, even though I sort of forgot about it the whole day, I'm actually really looking forward to it because I love sewing. It's something that brings me so much joy. Doing things that are this joy-bringing right before you go to bed, I feel like there's nothing really better in this world than something like that. So I'm actually really grateful for having to honor this commitment tonight because it's probably going to make a huge difference for my evening and maybe even my day tomorrow. Plus, you know, there are candles involved and I mean, who can say no to a candle? And so on the 5th day of this challenge, I sewed for a while by candlelight, and even though it was just 10 minutes, something about carving out this time before sleep allowed for a deep experience of peace. On days 6 and 7, I added the final finishing touches to the ishtan and completed the garment. It is currently 3 in the morning, and I really don't like to stay up this late anymore. I'm getting too old for that, frankly. And so, yeah, I've kind of overstepped my work limit for the day, but sometimes it happens. And I still haven't sewn today, so I've got a project over here, a new one that I've started because I finished the other one, so that's another thing altogether. So this is something that I'm picking back up that I haven't worked on since maybe December of last year. And it's winter now again nearly, so it's a bit of a heavier wrapper dress for the warmer seasons. And I'm just gonna work on it for like 5 minutes. Now I'm going to go and get some really good rest. That way I can catch up on my sleep and, you know, in the future as well, prioritize my sleep. Because sleep is so important. I think people forget how important good sleep is. And wow, this is such a flattering angle and lighting situation I've got going on. You know what? I don't even care. It's 3 a.m. Who looks good at 3 a.m., right? I nearly blew out that candle. Okay. Alright, I think it's time for me to sew and go to bed. See you later. Day 8 was a bit less tranquil, and I really left my sewing to the last minute. I vowed to not stay up this late sewing again, which is a promise I definitely did not keep throughout the rest of this challenge because already on days 9 and 10, I was up sewing again at the wee hours of the morning. No one tells you how hard it is to sleep during societally acceptable times if you're more of a night owl. So I am going out of town for a few days to visit a really close friend just a few hours away, and so I'm not going to be at home, which means it makes sewing every day a little bit more complicated, and also I'm going to have to be filming on my phone because I don't want to take my camera with me, you know, the whole thing. Also, I'm crouching down because I really don't want to set up my tripod right now. I found one of my works in progress, WIP, I think we call them, in the sewing world. It's just a pair of 1890s cycling bloomers that I started working on earlier this year, maybe in the beginning of summer, maybe even spring of this year. I don't know, something like that. I'm really glad I have some of these on-the-go projects just sitting somewhere in my house because they're very convenient and handy in times like these. Plus too, you know, I'm actually gonna get done things that I've been avoiding doing, which is always a nice feeling. Days 11 and 12 ended up being my first missed days in this challenge. There were many factors that made me far too exhausted to sew the days I was away, one of them being that I just hadn't seen this very close friend of mine in a few years. Sometimes I think there is a time and place for skipping a daily commitment, and one of those is when connecting with someone you really care about. Ironically, I still haven't finished sewing these 1890s bloomers, so much for finishing up things I've been avoiding. I am pleased to report though that I have completed many other things that I was avoiding instead. Once I got back from my time away, I knew that I needed to get into the swing of things again, otherwise there was a potential that this entire challenge could crumble apart. For many days in a row, I was keeping up with a steady pace, and hand sewing each day felt like so much a part of my routine by this point. I kept working on the Victorian winter wrapper, usually for around an hour each day, and then I switched to working on the medieval kirtle as I was getting ready to shoot the accompanying video. So I moved into kirtle making mode, except for one of the days in between the project where I had a super busy work day, so I had to skip working on the kirtle. But I still needed to get my sewing done, so I worked on the wrapper again for a total of 15 minutes, and then I got to day 24, the day before the kirtle video was set to go live. I was so busy throwing all the last bits for the edit together that by the time I actually was done and could go to bed, I was exhausted. I tried really hard to hand sew, but I knew I needed to admit when it was just too much. And so I honored that in myself and skipped another day of this challenge, adding up now to 3 days missed. I think after missing any day of a habit, the next day is often a little bit harder to get back into the swing of things, and so I used all the willpower I had in me to return to the flow of hand sewing again. But around this time, I also started experiencing pretty severe health issues. Nothing life-threatening, thankfully, but it definitely has greatly impacted my quality of life. For most of the days, I only ended up sewing for anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes, but all the little increments added up over time. On day 39, I started a new project, even though I definitely hadn't finished the winter Victorian wrapper. This time it was something way out of my comfort zone, a 1930s vintage evening gown. I hadn't even sewn vintage before by this point, so it was a new concept completely. I was sewing this dress as I got invited to a friend's vintage event, but as the event neared, my health got so poor that I actually had to cancel my attendance, as there was no way I would have been able to go. Although I'm not completely recovered currently, I am pleased to say that 7 months later, I am getting a lot better, so that's at least something positive. I started shooting the very time-consuming Medieval Food Week video at this point, and my best friend B also came to visit and participate in the Medieval Food Week, which I've linked in the cards if you want to watch it after this video. I'll have to admit that it was really hard to keep up with long filming days as well as sewing and other life commitments, so once the shoot was done, I knew I needed to get a lot more rest, so I was sewing most days just in small increments, sometimes for just a few minutes a day. I was making very slow progress, but hey, it was still progress. And then day 69 arrived, and I went my longest stretch without sewing consecutively, 3 whole days. I had a major life change, which involved a lot of energy. It's something really positive though, so it's a wonderful thing that it all happened. I truly do not know though how I would have managed to sew even for just a few minutes on those 3 days. Getting myself back to sewing on day 72 was definitely a struggle, but I knew once I had just one day under my belt, all the others would flow a lot more easily. So I was up until 2 in the morning editing. Honestly, YouTube and filmmaking is not a glamorous job. I think you really are in it because you love the art of it. Obviously, I don't want to normalize overworking, but I just kind of want to paint a realistic picture for what this industry is like and what it means to be a filmmaker sometimes, and also what it means sometimes to work in post-production. So I have a lot of respect for other people in this industry because it's not an easy one. So after everything was done and I finished editing for the night, I still had to do my sewing because, you know, I committed to this thing after all, and I already missed 3 days before. So yeah, I just did it. I only sewed for about 3 minutes, but I met my quota for the day. And I kept to the challenge and I kept going with it. I actually haven't really had any proper time to sew besides a few minutes every day. So I'm hoping to be able to get that sometime this week because I really miss just being to get fully immersed in a sewing project and not just kind of doing little bits here and there. I have this one ensemble that I've been working on and I really want to finish it up. But it's really going to take, you know, quite a few designated hours of doing so I need to block out some time for that. But I'm gonna keep going with the challenge. I'm gonna keep seeing what ends up happening. I think there's this fine balance with showing up daily to any type of craft or practice. There are moments where you need to push through the resistance and others where you need to honor your own limitations and admit that you need to rest. Many of the days were pretty easy to pick up the needle and thread, but the days that were consistently the hardest were usually the ones before I was set to release a video for this channel. But I kept going with the challenge. And then the holidays were coming up. This time of year is hard for me, so I took things a little easier. I reflected a lot, and I slowed down the pace of my life as much as I could. It is December 25th, 2023, which means that it is Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas to all those who celebrate, and happy holidays. Because I've committed to this challenge, the sewing continues even during the holidays. To be honest, with the way that I practice sewing, I think that a lot of the themes and topics go so much deeper than just the needle and thread. But I want to take this moment to say that no matter how you're feeling today, even if the holidays is a very difficult time for you, it is perfectly okay to feel what you are feeling. I think that there's all this pressure in society to feel a certain way or to act a certain way or to be a certain way during the holidays especially. This just gets incredibly amplified. Regardless of what comes up for you, that is okay. You do not need to force yourself to feel anything other than what you already do today. To be honest, the holidays is an incredibly difficult time for me every year for most of my life. And so it comes with this massive wave of grief that I end up processing, but also it's filled with things like hope and my love for nature and so many other elements. I think this is part of why I've put so much emphasis into actually honoring the winter solstice in my life versus the Christmas period, because for me the winter solstice carries a lot more significance and a lot more personal meaning. So I've kind of gotten to shape this celebration and this holiday that is just for me and for my personal connection with the earth and with the things around me. So even though I'm a little bit sad this year, I want to tell you that it's okay. It's okay to be sad this year. It's okay to be sad whenever. It's okay to be happy whenever. There are no limits to our emotions, and we don't do ourselves any justice by trying to force ourselves to be something other than what we are. So I'm gonna take a nice walk in nature today, and I'm gonna go and sew this dress. And I know I'm getting teary-eyed, but it's this bittersweet feeling of sort of reclaiming this time of year for myself, for the meaning it has for me, and also allowing myself to feel whatever grief is coming up. Since you'll all be watching this in the future, I hope that regardless for how this day was for you, that you at least got to spend certain moments of the day doing things that you love. Not what anyone else loves, but what you love. Alright, I'll see you in the next check-in. There's always this interesting feeling to me in the weeks between Christmas and New Year's. It's a hard one to describe. A lot stops in the outside world, and it feels quite liminal. To me, this week actually even sometimes feels quite confusing. But I kept on hand sewing each of the days, and suddenly I opened up my eyes and it was 2024. Happy New Year, everyone. It is currently January 1st at 3 in the morning. I just got home from spending some time with my friends at a small gathering, and it was just so lovely to be with them and to get to ring in the new year with them. I'm wishing you all a beautiful 2024 full of love and joy and lots of creativity and more time in nature and just being able to do the things that you love and the things that set your heart alight. Funnily enough, I have not done my sewing yet for the day. And so right after I make this little video for you all, that's what I'm going to be doing. Truth be told, I haven't had much time to sit down and properly sew for a while. I've been dealing with chronic health issues since October, so unfortunately a lot of my free time has been spent trying to get well and rest. So yeah, a lot of the moments where I'd usually spend it making garments and sewing, I've been spending it just trying to feel better. Even though physically I'm feeling quite unwell these days, mentally I'm feeling really good, so I thank my therapist for that, because I think in a lot of other times in my life I would not be feeling this way, so I'm really grateful to my therapist and to the work that we're doing together. This is also my New Year's outfit for the evening. It's my Volga Tatar dress and some antique jewelry. And I wanted nothing more than to wear this dress on New Year's because I want to feel as close as possible as I can to my ancestors this year. And so I thought, why not start at the new year? 2023 for me was a massive year of reconnecting with my Volga Tatar ancestry, but I just felt by wearing this dress, I could have a little part of them with me to welcome in the new year. And then they would be with me in a much more tangible way, instead of just being there in my thoughts or in my heart or in spirit. It's hard to believe that there are only 10 days left of this challenge. I feel like in some ways I haven't sewn enough, and then in other ways I continue to remind myself that there is no amount that we should or should not be sewing. The whole point of this challenge wasn't to make as many garments as I could. It was to be able to learn more about myself and to have this sort of consistent thing that I would turn to every single day at some point, even throughout a lot of the things I've been going through this last few months. With that being said though, the main goal that I have before this challenge ends is I want to at least get another Tatar dress cut out. I just continue to fall more and more in love with slow sewing, with hand sewing, every time I commit to things like this, because it reminds me of what actually matters in life, and that is to be there for the process of it, not necessarily just for the outcome. And I am here for the process of it. Every single one of the last 90 days. Okay, minus like 5 that I couldn't be. I'll see you all in the next update. It was the final stretch, the last 10 days, can you believe it? And I felt as the challenge came to an end, I became more and more reflective. Perhaps even a bit existential. Okay, to be fair, a lot existential, but I tend to be quite an existential person in my everyday life, so that doesn't really surprise me. So believe it or not, right now it is day 99 of 100. I still cannot believe that I have nearly finished this 100 days of sewing challenge. I'm going to have to properly summarize my thoughts, I think, after everything is actually done, because there's a lot. I have had a super long day, so I'm really just popping in here to share my shock in the fact that this is almost done. And although I had some plans about what more I wanted to complete before the challenge was over, things changed a little bit, like they tend to in life. I think things in life very rarely go the way we expect them to, but that's it for now, and it's really late, so I am going to get my sewing done quickly and actually start to head to bed because I need to get on a better sleeping schedule. This is kind of getting out of control, and I think I am stopping it here. I will see you all tomorrow for day 100 of hand sewing. Oh my god, day 100. It's felt like both an eternity and a second all in one. See you tomorrow. At last, I had reached day 100 and I was flooded with so many different feelings. Guess what day it is? It's day 100! I am shocked. I just can't believe that it's been 100 days. This candle is burning my hand. I need to readjust here. Okay, let's see. That's better. Ooh, I could like smell something starting to burn a little bit. Ooh. There's a lot of projects that I did not finish during this 100 days of hand sewing challenge, but that's okay because that is not the point of this. The point of this was to discover more about myself, to discover more about my ability to make commitments and stick to them, and I obviously did. I think I only skipped like 5 or 6 days throughout the entire challenge. And many times I would be sewing at like 1 or 2 in the morning at the very, very end of my day, right before literally that I was going to bed. But I'm not going to get too deep into my analysis of this challenge because I actually want to give myself some extra time to be able to process everything and then I will reflect back on it after. I find it takes me some time to collect my thoughts and to think about how I want to best portray them to you all. Finding words in life can be really hard, so giving ourselves the time to process and think about things, and most of all to feel things, I've found to be an invaluable technique. I will catch you all later when I have decompressed and can actually explain what I thought about this entire journey. All right, see you soon. I actually set down this entire filming project for 4 months, but finally, in late April, I was ready to record a summary of my experience. It's raining today, so hopefully the noise won't be too apparent on the windows. If not, it'll just create some ASMR ambience, which is always good. I waited this long to record the final outro of this video because I just really needed some space from the experience. The first thing I'm going to talk about is how many garments I sewed. The only thing I sewed completely were the Volga Tatar Ishtan, the teal pair that I made with the linen. All the other garments are still in pieces. And you know what? This is completely okay because there is no one that says that you should or shouldn't complete your garments. I used to be more strict on myself about, getting one done and then moving on to the next one, but lately I've kind of just been allowing myself to have the space to create freely and not put too many rules and pressures on myself, because sewing is meant to be fun and there are no rules for people to say that you can and can't do it like this or like that. Obviously, as long as you aren't harming other people, that's the main thing. But I think that goes without saying. The next garment was this winter wrapper, and I almost got this one done, except I never set in the sleeves and I didn't do some of the finishing work like the hooks and eyes. So I'm going to probably pick that one up back in autumn again because I don't need it at this moment with summer upon us. The medieval kirtle was next, and I did actually finish this garment. The medieval kirtle I sewed for a video, and it's completely completed, and I wear it a lot. I wore it throughout the entire medieval food challenge, and I will definitely be wearing this garment a lot again. So this one is one I really love, and it was my first exploration into medieval fashion properly, and I'm really grateful that I made this garment. The next one is a 1930s evening gown. I did not finish this garment because I got really sick and then I couldn't attend the 1930s event anyways. With regards to this, it's pretty much done. The bodice is constructed, the skirt is more or less constructed, and I believe hemmed. The only thing is that the skirt is not attached to the bodice, and also there's no zipper. So to be fair, this one is pretty close to being done. And then the last garment that I worked on throughout this challenge was the second Volga Tatar dress. Now, after I cut it out for this video, I did actually continue to work on it a bit more. I got somewhat far with it. I basically finished the pleating and some things, but I haven't set the sleeves yet. So I'm getting there, but it is something I probably will pick up again later in the year because it's a bit too warm now to wear it. I do really see the benefit in sewing a little bit every day and consistently showing up to a craft, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes a day, or even an hour a day, whatever makes your heart happy. And I really recognize that with any passion and any love in life, there are going to be days where you just don't want to practice. That's completely natural. I don't think that it's reasonable to expect ourselves to immensely love our craft every single day, day after day. But I found that more days than not, I actually was really resisting and really struggling to commit to sewing that day, and so I'd leave it until the very end of the day, which was challenging, and I felt like it often took the joy out of the experience for me because it was kind of one of those things that I was last minute trying to throw together because I had made a commitment rather than actually really putting intentional time into it, which I think there's a big difference. I don't know if it was the influence of my physical health challenges that was altering the experience for me. I've come to the conclusion after a lot of reflecting that the best way of practicing sewing and honoring my craft is sort of finding a balance. And I often say that the truth lies somewhere in between. So the way I've been approaching sewing now is that I've been honoring a little bit of daily practice. So trying to pick up the needle and thread in any moments where I have downtime throughout the day. Maybe not doing this every day, but just on days where I feel like I have a little bit more space to do so maybe once or twice a week. And then other days throughout the week, if I get that spark to want to go and make something, I let myself make things freely and openly without hindering myself. I think about, for example, how children in very safe and secure homes are given the space to play and to basically just try out different crafts and arts and see what they like the most. I'm trying to kind of approach my own creative practice in this way, just giving myself the space to make and not be judgmental of whether or not I like it or whether or not it's suiting my trajectory. I'm separating this, by the way, from my work expectations, because obviously with work that's a little bit different and that often requires a little bit more discipline because you have deadlines to meet and whatnot. But for this personal projects that aren't going for a video or don't have a deadline, the way I've been approaching them is by creating that space for myself to just make and to see what happens. What I love about this experiment is that I did it. I committed to 100 days of hand sewing. I'm a hand sewer through and through. I don't even own a sewing machine. For me, that's okay. That's the way I like to approach my craft. 94 out of 100 is still, I think, a really beautiful amount of days that I committed to my craft again and again, and that I chose my craft day in and day out. And I may not have sewn a million bazillion garments out of it, but the garments that I did make are really high quality. Once I finish putting some of them together, I'm going to be able to wear them, which is going to be amazing. I'd love to know in the comments down below if this is something you're going to try. What are your feelings about this experience and following along on this journey with me? I know it's been a big one and kind of all over the place. I'm chaotic good after all, you know, so things are bound to be a little bit all over the place. But maybe that's what makes us humans, and maybe that's the beauty of it anyways. I think all of human life is a little bit messy, and I personally wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to see me eat only medieval food for a week, then be sure to click on this video next. I'll see you all next time for another video.